Good morning, everybody. This is Lynna, and you are watching Lynna's Life. Yep, I am leaving Kennewick and on my way back home. It's been a good trip, good work trip. The area is beautiful, like I said before. It's spectacular. Right now, I'm looking at it. Almost looks like some kind of a African grassland. Dang, I don't know, but this is Washington. Let me show you. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Goodness gracious. Put this back on here. Oops. There we go. Yeah, it's quite striking, quite beautiful. Just in awe of this beautiful state. It's just it's a great place. But yeah, I was just watching my friend Justice. She does a morning vlog in the morning and just talks about her life and things and stuff. And I was just really blessed in this last video that she did, and I would definitely recommend people go watch it because it was really interesting. That it's like when you just know, there's like, it's not like you can, it's not like a truth that's meant to be accepted by other people, but in your case and in your specific situation, you know in your heart that you know the truth, right? You know the truth. And the truth that I'm talking about is the truth of knowing God, knowing the love of God and His compassion and desire to bless us and to give us an abundant life. And that's not something that you can like go walk and knock on doors and tell people about it. It's something that is experienced. It is caught, not taught, right? And it just reminds me of the verse in the Bible. It says, train up a child in the way they should go, and when they're older, they won't depart from it. Well, I've tried many paths in the last 6 years, especially the last 6 years. I can't say that I was brave at all prior to that time or dumb enough, I guess, I don't know, to try to do life differently without God. There's an old, well, it's not very old, but it's like a song about 10 years old or something. It's sung by a guy named Jesus Adrian Romero, and he's a Mexican worship songwriter, leader, pastor, speaker. Really good guy, really good guy. He's done a lot of different Christian albums and Christian worship videos and things like that. And there was one song that it reminded me of how I felt for such a long time with regards to my faith, with regards to believing, with regards to the truth of what I knew was within me. And that was a song called, I'm trying to remember the words in Spanish because I'm trying to translate those words. But it basically says that if I today were to walk out of my life and deny God's existence, where would I go? What would I have to replace it? What would life mean? What would truth be for me? And you know, I used to say, oh, that'll never happen, because I can't imagine abandoning the hope and the love that I knew, the truth about God that I had experienced personally in my own life. You know, the times when I was a kid and God manifested His presence in ways that just, you know, that leaves you with no doubt that there's a higher power looking out for you. And you know, after my accident, which is probably my greatest miracle ever, the fact that I'm a survivor, that I'm alive, that I'm not just alive, but that I'm flourishing, and that I'm abundantly blessed. I mean, it's amazing. It really is. And to think that after all that I would dare to deny my faith in God, deny my faith in what I knew was real, was true. But yet, God was there. God never abandoned me, even though I kicked in His face and spit in His presence, right into His direction. God was there. He's like, oh, Father, forgive her, because she doesn't know what she's doing. Famous words from the Bible that can be applied to each and every one of us when we find ourselves in a place where we doubt God, we doubt His goodness, we doubt His presence in our lives, we doubt His existence, we doubt the truth that we were taught to believe. And so the words of that song really got me to think, you know, it's something that not wanting to abandon God is sort of like, you know, how could I imagine to do that? But yet, there I was, after having been rescued in a dramatic fashion. I mean, if you guys look into that story, it's like, whoa. I mean, really? That really happened? I really went through that? I like literally hit rock bottom in my life. Broke my neck in 3 places and my back in 1, and pinged my spinal cord. And I made it. I made it out alive. Yeah. Stuff like that makes you think, there's no way I could ever deny God. And it makes me think about the disciple Peter, who saw the miracles of Christ firsthand. He was there when Jesus went to a wedding feast, because back then it wasn't just a wedding, it was a feast that lasted for a week or 2. Right? These were not just like, oh, I'm gonna go to the wedding and get ready and then be there for the 2-hour, for the 45-minute ceremony, and then go to the reception afterwards if you're invited guests of the bride or groom. No, this was a feast. The Jewish people knew how to throw a party, and there was wine gonna be spilt dine, you know, and have a great time. Dancing, right? So Jesus goes in with his ragtag bunch of like fishermen slash a reformed tax collector. I mean, it's like Jesus, like he's so cool. He just has no set like status symbol kind of way to be. I mean, he was just a cool dude. He walks in and it's called the Wedding Feast at Cana. And it really was a favor for his mom. Like, his mom wanted him to go. So Mary's there, and the custom is to always serve like the best wine first. And for those that think that wine, like Christians a lot of times say, I remember I was being told, oh no, Jesus didn't, he didn't condone drinking wine with alcohol. That was more like grape juice. No. It was wine. It was alcohol. It was the feel-good stuff, right? It was the tipsy on one glass or two and out of your mind, gone after the third one, right? Because Scripture notes that Jesus actually waited until, well, like the custom is, the best wine is served at the beginning. And why is that, do you think? Why do you think that it's going to be served at the beginning? Well, it's because that is when people are less inebriated. That's when they're less drunk. That's when they're more susceptible to notice the taste and the nuances of the flavor of the wine, and to comment to the head, person in charge of the feast how wonderful the wine is, So, well, they served it. They served that wine. And they served all the wine, just about, because it got to the place where the servants got really concerned and told the head guy that they were running out of wine. And they didn't know what to do. It's going to be embarrassing, right? So, Mary caught wind of it, heard about it, and then she asked her son, her little boy, her pride and joy, for Jesus, her baby Jesus. She asked her baby Jesus to do something. Her firstborn, I'm sure she had more kids, but that first one was special. And Jesus said, my hour has not yet come. I don't really want to show off and give off a miracle here. I mean, because she asked him, she said, Jesus, my friends, they're running out of wine. Can you please help? Basically, can you miraculously make wine appear? Jesus was obedient to his mom, and so he went to the servants and told them to fill up the jugs, all the jars that were the cisterns or whatever that were full of wine. He asked them to fill up those jars with H2O. Yeah, water. And they looked at him and they were like, why are we going to fill up a jar, a cistern, with water? And after contemplating a few moments, and he was out of his mind, they obliged and did as they were told. Jesus told them to leave. He was going to pray over those jars. And sure enough, yeah, there appeared wine in place of the water. All the water had changed, transformed itself into the best heavenly wine that anyone has ever had the opportunity to drink in this entire world and in the history of humanity. This was the vintage wine of the ages. And it was so because the Master, God, the Son, Jesus, made it. It was, well, those people were pretty out there, right, with regards to having been plastered from all that wine. And they gave the head guy a sample to taste. And he said, "My goodness, I usually serve the best stuff for the the beginning, not at the last." He's like, "Where did this wine come from?" And they said, "From Mary's son, Jesus. He made it so. It's a miracle." Yeah, it's a miracle. And Jesus did his thing. Didn't want any like fame from it. Wasn't really interested in accolades and telling them how wonderful he was. No, he just wanted everything to be quiet. Didn't want to make a big scene. And that's what I notice about like those people behind the scenes that you never see. Those people that pray, that old grandmother who's been praying for her grandson for a decade or more, that God would deliver him from his alcoholism. And then one day the grandson calls grandma and says, "Grandma, guess what? God delivered me." And then she's like, "I knew he would. I just knew he would." Because God's timing is like that. It's never our timing. There's a song by Toby Mac called "Help is on the Way." I definitely encourage you guys to watch this video, hear the words of this song, because it's a song that came out of tremendous pain, tremendous loss, as Toby and his wife lost their oldest son to suicide. And he didn't know what to write. He's a prolific songwriter and musician and producer and all of it. Former DC Talk lead singer and solo artist now for years. And he said, "Then one day I saw a scripture that said that God is rolling up his sleeves, like literally rolling up his sleeves for us to take care of things." And out of that scripture came the song, "Help is on the way." Because he may not show up when you want him to. He may not be there when you ask him to, but he's never late. And he's always on time because he's on the way. what you need and when you need it. And it may take a lifetime. It may take a week, maybe a day. But he never is going to not bend his ear to hear your cries and to listen and do what only he can do. And I love that. I love that because God is just so amazingly patient with us. He's so gracious to us. He's so kind to us. He's so gentle with us. And it's something that just blows your mind. You know, there's a scripture in, I think it's Ephesians, that says, "Now to him who is able to keep you from falling, and to him who is able to do all things above all that we could ask or even think to ask." That he wants to bless us in ways that are so profound. That he's not the God of the minimal, of the less, but he's God of the more. He's God of the plentiful. He's God of riches. I mean, he's a rich God. He has everything. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, right? And he is not somehow unable to act on our behalf and to bring us what we need when we need it. Not when we need it or want it, but when we need it, that he knows that we need it. And it's just a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. I mean, that he could actually want to bless us in a way that would be more than I could even imagine for myself. That certainly tells me that God is not a minimalist. God is extravagant. He's extravagant in his love, in his patience, in his compassion, in his empathy. And all we need to do is to accept him. Accept that he is that way. And acknowledge that. And everything will be just fine. May not be your timing. God may not show up when you need him in your 11th hour need, you know, but he's there. And he's watching. And when you suffer, he suffers with you. Right? Like all these years that I haven't seen my kids. Some of them I haven't seen since 2014. And I know that God is, whenever I've cried about it, which is many times, or a lot of times, whenever I get into a funk and I feel like I have nothing, to know that God's been there and that he's wanted to share in my grief, and that he's been compassionate towards me. It's amazing. Because it puts a different light on who God is and what He's all about and what He does and doesn't do. God doesn't yell at you. He doesn't throw jabs in your direction. He doesn't make you feel bad about yourself. He doesn't hold things against you. I mean, getting back to Peter, Jesus loved Peter. He loved him so much that even after he denied him 3 times, Jesus showed up in his life again in the sea. Peter had those encounters with Jesus in the sea, when Jesus was on the boat, or Peter was on the boat, and Jesus appeared and he said, if you're the Lord, bid me to come to you. And Jesus said, come. And Peter started walking, and then he looked away. He looked at the high seas, the weirdness of the situation, and realized, I'm not going to survive this. But God, right, reached out and grabbed him and pulled him out from under that tempest. And he told him that as long as he kept his eyes on him, he was going to be fine. And again, Jesus is making a meal, cooking on the seashore. And the disciples see him and approach him. And he gets him in a conversation with Peter again. And he says, Peter, do you love me? And Peter says, I love you, Lord. Like phileo, like friendly kindness. And he goes, Peter, do you love me? Then he says, like in that agape way, unconditional. And then he asks him again, Peter, do you love me? And Jesus undid the 3 times that he denied him with, Peter, do you love me? And Peter saying, I do. Isn't that beautiful? Jesus, he's so sensitive to the needs, because Peter felt awfully bad after he denied him. I'm sure. And as did I, when I denied God and said, what I said, wrote what I wrote on my Facebook. But Jesus never denied me. He never stepped away from me. He never once walked out of my life. Just like it says in Psalm 23, yea, even though I walk through the shadow of the valley of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. So Jesus makes me a food table with a banquet of food on it, and the enemy has to look at it and look at me noshing on good food. Anyway, this video is going to end pretty soon, but I just wanted to thank you for watching, and we'll continue it another time. Alright, see you guys. Have a great day. Bye.